Welcome to this look at a new-ish mod map to Farming Simulator 19 with me, MrSealyp. This is Grasslands. This is a new-ish mod map to Farming Simulator 19. Now I just want to start off by saying I was on holiday when this map dropped and I didn't do a map tour. And as the days went by, I didn't think it was not right for me to do a map tour, but I just didn't think people would be bothered about watching it because it would be so many days since the map was released and people were already playing on it, so the map tour wouldn't be as relevant. But I've had so many people asking me, am I going to do a map tour on it? What, we're 2 weeks after, I think? 2 weeks after. So I thought I'll do it. I'll come on, I'll do a map tour as I normally do for those people that want to watch it and want to see it. This map has had an update since it was originally released. Fixed grass cutting, made entrance to field 39, fixed BGA buyable 79,000, fixed triggers for cows and put milk churns on milk collection points. So after release it has already had an update. Now I do my map tours on New Farmer. On New Farmer this has used 752 slots out of 1299, which seems a lot. Seems quite alarming to start off with, but there's a reason for that. This will use 252.87 megabytes to download, and it's by Steve's Mods. We'll have a look around the main farm and stuff in a minute. We'll have a look on the map to see where we start. This is the map. We start here at the main farm. Now, there are pros and cons to various different things on various different maps, and I'll kind of talk about them as we go around. So on New Farmer, this is what we start with. You start with the cow farm. You do start with a silo, field 52, 25, 26, 61 and 66. So quite a few fields. The biogas plant, as I've already stated, is, well, it's nearly 80,000, but 79,944. If you want to use the biogas plant, you need to own it. That's how much that will cost to buy. Field prices vary. Where was the cheapest one I found? Was it? No, it wasn't field 30. 33 was it, I think? There's one there for 94 grand. I think I found one for 80 something. 86. And then we've got some of the larger fields, 902,738. But we've got this big area up here. Now this is part of the periphery of the map. So to buy all the kind of lanes, roads and the peripheral bits, that's 2,390,712. Now you can access that kind of. When we get up there I'll show you what I mean. It's a big open space, which I suppose you could use for placeables and things like that, if you can. But I'm not 100% certain on that. And like I say, people will have been playing this map for ages now and will probably know better than I. But this is just me doing a map tour to show you what it's like for anyone that hasn't looked at it or, you know, for whatever reason. Now, we do have on the map a sheep farm, which is just here, which you can buy. Buying the sheep farm will cost you 213,000. We do have chickens actually up the top here. So chickens up here at the Sawmill. We've got horses which are down here. The horse farm there is 262,680. And then we do have across here, we've got the pig farm, which we're going to go around to have a look at. If you want to buy that with the huge field that comes with it, 677,000. Now, I have found the triggers, the animal dialogue boxes are all there even if you haven't bought them. So potentially you can still do them if you don't own the fields. Sometimes that can be a little bit iffy. It doesn't always work, but often when that's not the case, the animal dialogue boxes don't come up. But anyway, so we'll have a look around the yard here where we're starting. So this is the main farm. Now the thing I was going to say was about sleep triggers. All maps are kind of different. Some you have a fixed in place one that you can't do anything with. Some you have a buyable, sellable one, which means you can put your sleep trigger wherever you like. This one doesn't have one on the map at all, which is a good thing. I think, you know, some maps it kind of works, especially when you've got multiple farms and there are loads of sleep trigger farmhouses, doormats, deck chairs, you know. So you can actually really decide where you want your start point to be. You might not want it to be the cow farm, you might want it to be somewhere else. So I think not having a sleep trigger is probably not a bad thing, but not necessarily in every case. It just depends on the map and what you feel. Now, The reason the slot count is very high is because you start with a ton of equipment. I mean an absolute load of equipment. You also start with the silo. Now as far as the silo goes, it's a standard in-game silo. There are no modded buildings, placeables or anything like that on this particular map. Sometimes map makers add them in. But if we go across to placeables and go across all the animal pens, it's all the standard in-game ones. Miscellaneous, standard, decoration, standard, silos again, all standard stuff. So the silo you start with is a standard in-game one. Same with sheds. And I say farmhouses, you don't start with one. That's the standard in-game one, but you can put your own in. So the slot count is high because of the amount of machinery we start with. If I go to garage, you'll see what I mean. There is a load. We start with 4 tractors: John Deere 6230, Fendt 1038, Fast Track 8330, 7230R John Deere. We've got an Activa 7347 harvester, trailers, header for the harvester. We've got ploughs, cultivators. We've got Horse Pronto 9, seeder. We've got sprayers, spreaders, mowers, all the grasswork equipment, tedders, windrowers, loading wagon, balers, feed mixer wagon, straw blower. You know, there's so much stuff. And then we've got the silo at the end. Now, if you sell all of that, if you decide, you know what, slot count's too high, I don't want all that equipment for whatever reason, you can get the slot count down to 472. Now, that may vary a little bit. I have had people tell me that Xbox sometimes is a little bit off on the PlayStation ones, but you can get that down to about 472 slots and then pick what you want from there. Now, as far as it goes with Farm Manager and start from scratch, on both of those you start on 745 slots instead of 752. The only difference is you don't have this silo. You start with all of the rest of the machinery, you just don't have the silo because you don't own the land. So as you can see, we've got a load of the equipment here already. And as we go around the yard, so we're facing north now, we've got plenty of barn space, storage space, sheds, shelters. Now if these look familiar, or any of the buildings that are familiar as you go around, it does say on the mod hub, a thank you to Auction David, Lancy Boy, Bullet Bill and GB Modding for their help and models, and thank you to MJ Modding for letting me finish this map and release it. So a few people have helped out. Steve mods with regard to this, and like I say, there's loads of space but loads of equipment. And it may be that some of the stuff is not your cup of tea, so again, getting rid of it and starting with different stuff is absolutely your prerogative. As we're moving north through the yard, we do have a workshop trigger inside here. Now that will become more relevant later on. Apparently there are still issues on this map. I'd had when it was released, and after the update I did have a few comments left on YouTube, but as you can imagine I get hundreds and hundreds of comments left, and because at the time I wasn't intending doing a map tour because a few days had gone by, then a week went by, and a few people have said there are still some issues. I honestly went through my comments, I couldn't find the comments that were left, so I couldn't tell you what they are or potentially were, but I've come across a couple of little things. Every map's the same. I don't think I've come across a single map that doesn't have a slight issue somewhere along the line. This is the milk trigger, just here. And there's a couple of churns just there to kind of help identify it. And as we come round, we have got the feed triggers and the buy, sell, load or unload trigger for the cows, which is just here. If I open my menu, you'll see open animal dialog box. The cow pasture will hold 500 cows. Which is pretty cool. Now one thing I did notice for doing the thumbnail, I bought a load of cows. I don't know if it's the nav mesh, I'm not sure, but I bought quite a few and they were all huddled into a very small area here. They weren't kind of ranging out across the pasture, they were in a fairly small kind of tight enclosed area. So potentially again that could just be a nav mesh thing, but we've got water trough here and feed troughs, and we've got the manure point, and it's all but in the vicinity. As you can see, troughs along the outside here. Now, all of the animal points, pastures, pens, are locked in place. They are on the map, they are there. You can't get rid of them. Now, you can sell them, like if I decided to sell this land, but the buildings will stay here. Which brings me on to, actually just go and grab a tractor to start going round. I think I'm going to grab the Fent, will be the fastest one, I think, won't it? Yeah. Now, as I said, on Farm Manager and Start from Scratch, you start with all the equipment. But something I found, and it's something you might want to bear in mind if you haven't played on this map and you're watching this and thinking, oh, I might give it a go. If we come onto the map, and you can see the pens as I've already shown you. If you come on Start from Scratch or Farm Manager, these icons here, the one for the cows isn't here, and nor's the one for the sheep. Weirdly, the horse one is still there, the chicken one in the top right is still there, and so is the pig one. And I thought, oh, well, it's because you're starting and you don't own this, that's why. So I bought the land. The icon didn't come back, and nor did the triggers for buying, selling, loading or unloading. And the same with the sheep. I bought the plot of land there, and the sheep icon didn't come back either. So the problem with that is potentially you've got two farms with loads of buildings and barns, which then it renders them not useless, but you've lost the ability to have the animals. So it's something worth bearing in mind. If you want to do a kind of Farm Manager or Start from Scratch-esque gameplay, you might be better off coming on New Farmer, selling everything off and you know, leasing and returning equipment, doing whatever you need to do, because that is potentially one of the issues people were talking about. There are a couple of the icons are missing, but again, that's just what I found, that's what I've come across. It may not have happened to you, it may be absolutely fine. We're going to do a kind of route round. Well, we are going to do a route round. What I meant was a kind of clockwise route round. The header and header trailer is down the little lane here. If we go south down to the main road runs off in that direction, but doesn't go any further. But there is a turning which takes us up to a sheep farm. But there is a cut through, which we're going to take now, from here. Now, I'm not trying to be negative about the map. There are a lot of things about this I really like. I like the landscape, the topography. It looks stunning. It's really nice. The undulations are wonderful. It's a really nicely laid out map. And there's another thing I like a lot, and you'll notice more and more as we go around, is there are hedges, and there are no hedge collisions for vehicles. Often you find with the hedges, if there are no collisions for vehicles and you walking through and stuff, there are often collisions for harvester headers, pallets, bales, those kind of things. Not always, but what you'll also notice is the hedges are quite low. And that serves a really nice purpose. There are some that are a little bit taller, but for the most part the hedges are there and they're quite low. So whilst they are acting as a kind of boundary, it doesn't feel enclosed, it doesn't feel claustrophobic. Sometimes when the hedges are a little bit higher and you're going down lanes and things, it feels kind of tight and a little bit, but it feels very open, and I think that hedge height has got a lot to do with that. I'm pretty sure I'm not imagining that. It does feel a lot more kind of open, even though they are still there, but that's a nice feature. Assuming that's why that was chosen, it wasn't just because, you know what, that's the ones I want to go for, but regardless, that does work. So, the sheep farm. Again, loads of barns, loads of buildings, loads of space. There's not a workshop trigger up here at this farm. The only one I've come across has been the one at the cow farm. I did check in a few buildings just to make sure. The trigger for the sheep for dialogue is just here, so buying, selling, loading or unloading is done here. The sheep will hold 250. Then we've got our feed trigger, and I think we've got the water trigger is in the field. Pretty sure it is. There you go, just there. Got the air balloon lazily winding its way around the countryside, and then we've got our pallet spawn point. It's just over here. So from here we're going to continue north-ish, but we're going to take a turn just here. There is a forest on the map. There's trees all over the place, but there's kind of the main forest is just left and up here. Now this is one of the things I was going to talk about, and again, this is not specific to this map, although I have come across it. It's been more obvious, is that the word? Yeah, probably obvious. Is sound effects. I have found on some maps you'll get to certain points in the map, and yes, you'll get birds and cuckoos and dogs howling and, you know, cars and motorbikes, which, you know, aeroplanes going over. But sometimes you'll get to the middle of a field and there'll be running water, or there'll be, you know, a sound effect that immediately your brain thinks, hang on a minute, that's a bit weird. When I came up here, and the problem is I'm recording this with my headset on now, seagulls, can you hear them? Your mind goes, huh? It just seems a little bit off with the surroundings because there's no water. But I don't know whether, again, that's down to the base layers of the map being taken from something else. Potentially, again, it's not a, you know, it's not something that's going to stop you playing the game, but it's just there. Unlike some other maps where it'll be one location in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere, and only if you do that field you come across it. If you come to Forestry, it's kind of obvious. You can hear the seagulls. Now I'm going to head north and then cut across the fields. There is a road, and we're going to get to the road in a minute. We're going to head up to the biogas plant. We've got the biogas plant, milk and egg sell point, and the barn sell point are up here. So we're heading north to the northern end of the map, northern point of the map. And that's what I'm saying, I do like the topography, the sweeping up, kind of all around. It has a very, very nice feel to that. So I have cut across a little bit, and I'll show you on the map. So we went from the main farm here, along this track, up through the sheep, up here to look into the forest a little bit, and there's a bigger area out here, there's a few things, you know, there's more to explore. And then we've headed north up here and then cut across the top here. It kind of shows a track. Maybe I was on the wrong side of the fence, maybe, but we've come across here and we're now at the biogas plant. So we've got the egg and milk sell point, which we're just going to see to our left. We've got the biogas, and then we've got the barn sell point just to the very north. So that's your eggs and milk. Two fairly large bunker silos. The sell point into the digesters just there, and then our digestate tank for collecting our byproducts is just here. Barn sell point is just there. Now, one thing I did notice as well, for the sell points, there aren't kind of obvious hazard mark trigger points on the ground. But if we go into our menu and go across to, or go down to barn and put tag place, there you go. That's where the sell point is, but it's just not marked on the ground. And again, some map makers do it, some don't. Just depends on who's done it. Now obviously, rather than cutting across country, the main route up is by road, which we're coming on to now. There is traffic on the map, not a huge amount. It is fairly slow, but again, that's not specific to this map. There are loads of maps where the traffic is slow, just pointing out, it is on here. So as we drive down the road, we're going to come towards the spinnery sell point, but it's a nice opportunity to have a look at the countryside as we go, so I'm going to stop talking for a minute. Very nice indeed. Now there are quite a few cottages and houses and buildings and things dotted around the map, and again, these are really nice. They fit. It works. And a lot of them are unlike buildings I've come across. You know, obviously there are going to be maps where you think, oh yeah, I remember that from X map or whatever, but they're really nice and very, very varied as well. It's not the same one just plonked down in various places. Now this is the spinnery. And as I drove past initially, I thought, wow, that's a kind of big old manor house, country estate type thing. It's a very imposing wall with gates. And when I drove down, this is the spinnery sell point. I did initially think, is that right? Is the sell point trigger in the correct place? Again, it's not marked on the ground, and it seems like a home. But again, if we go down on the side here to spinnery, tag place, there you go. This is the sell point for the spinnery. Again, it's probably because it's a different sort of building and setup. which is a good thing. You know, as I say on a lot of maps, it's nice to have something different. And you know, there's nothing wrong with making a map and using kind of standard in-game stuff and going, okay, right, there's a biogas plant, there's a spinnery, there's, you know, and using ones that existing people use. But it's always nice to have something a little bit different, you know, even if it's just one or two of the sell points. Now this map does only have one, what I consider to be a main sell point, you know, your kind of multi-crop sell point, which we will get to as well. We're going to continue along the road, and we're going to take a left in a second and up around the countryside, which takes up to the sawmill and the chicken coop. Just here. Again, kind of taking the countryside as we go. Now this isn't set anywhere specifically in the UK, it's just set in the UK. But what I like about it, and you know, again, I suppose because UK maps aren't for everyone, I totally understand that, but being from the UK and spending a lot of time driving around the countryside and holidays and things like that, what I have really liked is as I'm going around it, there's a lot of familiarity to it. There have been certain, you know, it does say in the mods hub, where is it? Map has great views. And it does, and there are loads of views that as I'm driving along I'm thinking, oh, that reminds me of such and such a place. Or, you know, I would be driving along a lane like this and I think, oh, blimey, that reminds me of this holiday or that holiday or a place near where I live. Or I like that. I like, you know, and again, if you're not from the UK, you're not going to get that feeling. That's going to be very specific to people that, you know, live in a particular area. But it's nicely done. Now, this road continues on and then kind of stops and goes onto a little track. If we turn up here, we come to the chicken farm and sawmill. So if we open up the gates here, now this bit here is possibly for me the one bit of the map that I've found probably irritating is the best way of putting it. And it's that. It sounds like you're stuck in the middle of a watermill or a waterfall, and that's what I said about sound effects. It's funny how the sound effects can be all perfect and work perfectly on a map. It's no different to watching a film or anything where the music, everything just works. If it just works, you don't notice. When it doesn't, when something's out, when something's not quite right, it becomes very stark and obvious. And then once your brain tunes into it, you can't untune your brain from it. And that, unfortunately, that sound goes right across here. I'm not too sure why, unless it is a remnant from the kind of pre-existing base map that it's been put on. But that, it gets quite loud in places as well. But again, it's there. I'm not, you know, it's just something kind of, if I didn't point out, you'd hear it anyway. So, chickens, feed point is just there. Egg spawn point is there, and I think the trigger is this one here. Yep. This will hold 500 chickens, I think it is. Yeah, 500 chickens. And this is the other point I was going to talk about, was if we just skip through the hedge here, we've got this big open area which is part of that peripheral bit which is over 2 million to buy. And I walked out onto here and thought, well, it's allowing me to get out here, but then I kind of reach a point and it doesn't let me go any further. I thought, well, that's unusual, isn't it? But it's not, you know, I suppose some maps it is kind of okay. But the weird thing is, when I first walked out onto here, when I was looking around the map, it did let me walk out onto there. And I thought, oh, that's fantastic, a big old place up there, a huge field you can buy if you want to. So it's let me go a little bit further, but then it stops me. And if I walk down the side of the trees the other side, I couldn't get past the trees. And I thought, okay, that's obviously you're not supposed to get in there. Then at one point, it did. I went through and I was out in the field. I thought, oh, okay, fantastic, so you can get on there. But then it went a little bit glitchy and a bit weird, and all of a sudden I was way up in the air and things didn't seem to be going quite right. So I'm now in two minds. I'm not sure that you are supposed to be able to get into here. Like I say, if we go like this, now we're out into this area, and I thought, oh, fantastic. We are right out into this area. Huge expanse to do what you want with. But it went a bit funny when I came back. All of a sudden I was floating in the air and things didn't go particularly well. So again, are you supposed to be out on this bit? I'm not 100%, you know. it does seem very plain, but we have had maps before which have had these big open areas, and now I've hit a barrier coming back the other way, and if I do this, look. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if you are supposed to be. But again, it's worth pointing out, because people will probably ask, so, oh, can you use that area? I really don't know, is the honest answer. Right, I'm just going to jump back to my vehicle, 1 second. So, where are we now? We've come down the road, past the spinnery, we've taken our turn in and come all the way up here. We're at the sawmill. Like I say, it's unusual, but I suppose the thing about it is on that peripheral bit, which possibly indicates it's not supposed to be, but it does seem unusual to have the whole rest of the map all okay to use, but not that bit specifically. But I don't know, say, if you've been playing on the map for a while, you may well know better than I, and that was another reason why I wasn't going to do the map tour, because the longer time passes, a map tour as I'm doing it now, I haven't played on this, I haven't put any excessive amount of time onto the map. This is just me showing you what's here and what's available, and the longer it goes from release of that happening, I've always personally just felt it becomes a little less relevant for me to do a map tour. But again, take from that as you will. So I'm going to carry on back down the road, going to get back onto the main road, and we're going to head along to the horses, then we're going to go down to the main store sell point, the main sell point on the map, then we'll head round to the pigs. Now, from here, this point, that track leads off across the map. So we've come back down to here. So that track is a kind of cut through, I guess. I'm going to go around the outside to the horses, then down to the bottom here. But that will cut down and across here. When you get to this point, there's a bridge, and we're going to get to that later on. The bridge will take you across, but you can come down off of there and onto the main road. So this kind of cuts through to the middle. And the other thing I was talking about was the houses. It's like buildings like this one coming up on the left. It's so picturesque and lovely, and again, it just fits. It works really well. Coming up on the left, we've got the stables. So this map does say it's seasons ready. I just started thinking about stables, and I thought about keeping the horses and buying them or just looking after them. It does say it's seasons ready. So the trigger for the horses is just there. It will take 8 horses. If you buy this plot, you do get this big open field here with it. But again, nicely laid out, barn space, building space. Which brings me back around again to the whole thing of the sleep trigger. You know, it might be you decide, you know, I'm going to run a stables rather than be a farm manager per se to start off with, and I'll put a sleep trigger here at the stables. I like the fact there's the option, you know. It can be often quite frustrating when a sleep trigger is put on a map that you can't move and can't do anything with. That can be, you know, frustrating. Again, it's not something that would necessarily stop you playing on a map, but necessarily stop you playing on the map. Right, we're going to turn left and we're heading south. And we're going to come to the store on the left and the sell point on the right. Right, livestock market is just here. So animal dialogue box is there. So if you want to buy directly and have them shipped, or if you want to come and collect them yourself, that's done from here. The store point is just around the corner, and interestingly, 2 of the bits of equipment you start with on New Farmer, the mowers, are here at the store for you to come and collect. So whilst you do own them, they just need to be collected. So we've got our point there. Now the other thing is, here we've got a cash point, but there's no trigger, or not an obvious one that I came across, for repair, customization and selling of vehicles. So what you often find on, well, what you do find on maps, if you sell directly, so if I own a piece of machinery and I sell it through my regular menu, so if I go onto here, go to garage and decide I'm going to sell whatever, my baler, I'll get 36,690. If you take it back to the store and sell it at the store sell point, you normally get a bit more for it because you're selling it at the store. But there's not a sell point, or if there is, it's not marked. It's not. There's no disc. There's no. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I don't know about that one. Couldn't find one. Like I say, there's no repair and customization point here either, which means the only one is at the main cow farm, unless you place a toolbox mod or a workshop trig or something like that. But although that's weird. What have we got here? So we've got a trigger there. Oh, is that just a hazard mark bit for? Oh yeah, it must have just for that. I just suddenly saw that a little bit further back and thought, hang on a minute, that's a bit odd. Anyway, so sell point. Just here is Port Southeast. So this is the main sell point. This is your kind of multi-crop sell point. Some of the other ones are more specific. Your sawmill, your spinnery, your dairy one. But this is the one where you'll sell most crop types. So we go across one and we go to Port Southeast. So it will deal with your cereal crops. As we scroll across, you can also sell sugarcane and eggs here and milk here. And if we keep going, yeah. So you can do eggs and milk at the actual egg and milk sell point, but you can also sell them here. And prices will fluctuate. But again, only having one kind of main sell point is not the end of the world. There are plenty of modded sell points available, so if you do want a bit of competition with your selling and you want a bit more fluctuation of prices and options, you can place them. Right, so the last of the places we're going to go to, and you see what I mean about the traffic being fairly slow. This is the main road through. All the roads you've been on so far haven't really had any traffic on. This road that runs up and past the main farm is the main one. I shouldn't really be overtaken with a bend coming up, but I think I'll get past. No, I don't want it to come across that I'm being overly negative of the map at all. Like I've said before, every map tour, I think pretty much every map tour I've done, there have been positives and negatives. There are things you point out, things you notice, things that other people have said, oh, did you see or have you noticed? But overall, like I said, it's a really, really nice map. I like the layout, I like the features, the countryside, and as you probably noticed with the hedges as we're going around, it doesn't feel claustrophobic. There's a bit coming up now, it feels a little bit more, but again, things like this, the bridge going over, it's very picturesque. It's a nice map, There are some tight bits like this. Bigger machinery, probably not going to get away with. I would say small to medium. I'll make sure I don't miss the turning because it's just along here somewhere. Whoa, that wasn't good. That's a branch that's going to need to be removed. Just smashed my windscreen and stove part of the cabin. So just coming up at some point, I think it's just after this tree. We're going to turn to the pig farm. Now again, not specific to this map, but one thing I did notice, and because you have to do a fair bit of map reading to find the lanes and the tracks and the roads, there aren't any signposts. Not every map, again, not every map has them. Some map has things signposted and it makes it a little bit easier for finding things, but not all maps do. But I think it just became, I know when I was going around I was looking for routes through to places and it became kind of obvious. I drove past this turning initially that there weren't any. I don't know. Again, not specific to this map, there are a lot of maps that don't have them. But what I have found very nice, and again refreshing, is how each farmyard has been completely different. different layouts. Some are a little bit tight, some are a little bit more open. The buildings vary, and that's a nice thing. It makes each one feel fresh and different. So this is the pig farm. Our trigger, just here. This will hold 300 pigs. Very nice indeed. Feed trigger trough just there, and the water one is just around the corner here. I would imagine the bedding one is probably along here as well. Might be split between the two. Yeah, there we go. So we got one will be feed and one will be, this one will be for your straw bedding. And that's it for all intents and purposes. We're going to head back along the main road, but we've been round the map. We've done the whole loop round. We just came from the shop here, back up the road here, up and over the bridge, along the lane here, and then down to here. So what we'll do is we'll head back along as we head along there, onto the main road, and then back to the main farm. And that's the map. Like I say, I will just reiterate again though, when I came on before on Start From Scratch and Farm Manager, the cow trigger or the cow icon and the sheep icon weren't there. That may be something you want to kind of explore yourself and have a look just to double check, but even when I bought the land on both of those modes, those icons didn't return. So it's just a warning really, but there you go. Grasslands by Steve's Mods. A NEWish map. It's a console, it's FS19. I hope you found this useful and informative in some way, shape or form. If you have, give us a like. If you don't subscribe yet, please do. If you want to leave a comment, feel free. And if you want to share this video, then please be my guest. Whatever you should choose to do. Thanks for watching.